Welcome. Y'all know what it is. This is not a podcast. This is just my thoughts with Rob Markman. Today we're going to talk about lists. The whole internet is in a uproar. Everybody online, all social media, everybody's in the uproar about these lists. Today, Apple Music finally completed their 100 best albums list. So they ranked the 100 best albums of all time, all genres, all inclusive. I'll tell you something too. CNN called me and asked me to be on CNN tonight, or they emailed me, and I didn't get the message till late. I'm not gonna be able to make it a set on time, but CNN actually wanted me to be on tonight to speak about this, and I couldn't make it in time, but it all works out because I'm here with y'all, and honestly, this is where I'd rather be at this point. Shout out to CNN, but we're building something dope over here, just on this community on YouTube. All y'all in the comments. And, I was running some errands earlier today. I couldn't wait to get home to flip the camera on and talk to y'all about this. So the 100 best albums, Apple Music. I'm just going to go through the top 10, or I'll go through the top 20. And we're going to talk about what we think. I want to know what y'all think in the comments. So please leave y'all comments, like, subscribe. Y'all know how that goes. Number 20 is Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. I never heard this album. Like, I'm also going to be honest, right? And everybody who's debating, before I even get into this, everybody is kind of up in arms. But I don't know very many people, if any, who could say that they've heard all 100 albums. Like, they've listened to all 100 albums. But number 20 is Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. 19 is Dr. Dre, The Chronic. Number 18 is 1989, Taylor Swift, the Taylor version. Number 17 is What's Going On by Marvin Gaye. Number 16 is Blue by Joni Mitchell. Number 15, 21 by Adele. Number 14, Highway 61 Revisited by Bob Dylan. 13 is The Blueprint, Jay-Z. 12 is OK Computer, Radiohead. 11 is Rumors, Fleetwood Mac. 10 is Lemonade, Beyonce. 9 is Nevermind by Nirvana. 8 is Back to Black by Amy Winehouse. 7 is Good Kid, Mad City, Kendrick Lamar. That's the highest rated hip-hop album, is at number 7. So it's Good Kid, Mad City, Kendrick Lamar. 6 is Songs in the Key of Life by Stevie Wonder. 5 is Blonde by Frank Ocean. 4 is Purple Rain by Prince. 3 is Abbey Road by the Beatles. Number 2 is Thriller by Michael Jackson, of course. And number 1 is Miseducation of Lauryn Hill by Lauryn Hill. So how'd they come up with this list, right? Because it's impossible. First of all, you're speaking to somebody who has made some lists in his day. When I was at MTV, for those who remember what the hottest MCs was, I used to sit on that round table for a couple of years, and we used to rank the hottest MCs in the game. Bunch of rappers would get upset. Like, you're never going to make everybody happy. Whenever I tried to do that list in that round table, it was never with the intent to piss people off, right? Like, I know when I sat there, it was like, man, I want to get it right. And I felt like most of my colleagues too, like we were really trying to get it right. Even if we got it wrong, we were really trying to get it right. It wasn't like with the intent of trolling, but lists inherently, people are just going to feel away. You could come up, there's no such thing as the perfect list. Another major list I used to work on was back when I was at XXL, the XXL freshman cover was essentially as a list. And that used to piss people off every year. And again, I know my intention and the staff that I worked with at the time, like our intention was to get like 10 people who we thought were going to have viable careers in hip hop. And the fact of the matter is in a year, the industry just doesn't support 10 new standout, breakthrough, amazing careers in a year. Like, you make the best picks that you can, but there's never a year where you get like 10 artists who are like, yo, they popped off. And then a lot of times what will happen with freshmen is we saw somebody's potential. Like, I remember putting YG on the cover of XXL Freshman and believing in YG. And I remember getting criticized for it. And then My Crazy Life came out a couple of years later, maybe 2 or 3 years after he appeared on the freshman cover, and it all made sense. So sometimes you're a little bit too early. But I say all that to say, like, no matter what the list is, people are going to be upset, right? So I'm just looking at a tweet that Ebro sent. I just want to maybe give some criteria. But first of all, they voted. So I guess it was like internal Apple employees. I heard they got some journalists. I personally wasn't polled for this. Some music industry professionals, maybe some artists, I'm not sure. But, Ebro says voters of the 100 best on Apple Music were challenged to not vote for our favorites, but albums that represented a cultural moment for the artist or genre, albums that were complete thoughts, not just a collection of hit songs, albums that thoroughly represent culture and production and lyrics, albums that inspired a generation to want to create more music, albums that represent the best in storytelling, musicianship, recording, and production, and albums that are timeless and reach far beyond the genre categorization. You know, the other hard thing about this, so that was the criteria. The other hard thing about this is, again, like I said, this is all genres. I could really speak to hip hop. Like I could really speak to R&B, some pop music, but like again, I haven't heard like even in the top 20 that I just listed. Like I've never heard Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. I know the Beach Boys is like an all time classic group. I've heard of the album. I've heard songs from the album. I've heard how the album has influenced others, but I've never heard the album, so I can't really judge. But let's just talk about it, man. I'm just gonna start at number one. Miseducation of Lauryn Hill at number one, and Lauryn received an award. I mean, I think that's a phenomenal album. I bought it the first day it came out. I remember where I was when I bought it. I remember where I was when I first listened to it. That album has stand the test of time. It has lasted generations already, I believe. I don't have it here in front of me, but I believe that came out in 98. If I'm not mistaken, if it wasn't 98, it was 97. But I'm almost positive Miseducation came out in 98. I'm like 99.9% sure. And, you know, so that's over 20 years. What is that? Almost 26 years now? Stood the test of time. So that's at number one, and Lauryn got an award, and Lauryn deserves all the awards. Phenomenal album. But number two is Thriller. And, it's hard for me to, Thriller is number one. Like a monster. What has Thriller sold? Over 30 million copies? 40 million copies? Like that's insane. Um, Thriller Thriller is the album that all albums aspire to be. It's hard for me to not see Thriller number one. You know, the other thing, and we could go through the 100, but I looked through the 100 list, and actually, Thriller is the only Michael Jackson album on here, which is crazy to me. I think maybe they try to give a lot of artists some fair shakes. You know what I'm saying? Where like, if you put too many albums from one artist, then other artists don't get a chance to be on. I don't know if that's what was the thinking. It looks like it here, but Thriller, and I'm just double checking, Thriller as the only Michael Jackson album on here is crazy, because if you go from Off the Wall to Thriller to Bad, that might be the biggest, the best, and the most culturally impactful album run of any artist ever. Those three albums back to back to back, to go from Off the Wall to Thriller to Bad. And I'm not just talking about sales, like, and there was several years between those albums, but the album would last years. You would tour the album for years. Like, you know what I mean? Like the hits never stopped coming. Like you would roll out singles from Thriller for like 2 or 3 years. You know what I'm saying? Before Bad came out. But y'all could correct me if I'm wrong. And I'm gonna put a link to the Apple Music, to the full list, in the description, so y'all could check it out. But there's not another Michael Jackson album on here, and that doesn't make sense to me. That the Thriller being the only out of the 100 best albums of all time, and it's only Thriller, and Thriller deserves to be. Look, I personally actually like Off the Wall better than I like Thriller, but I being as objective as possibly can, and you can't really be objective with music. Music is totally subjective. Thriller being the best Michael Jackson album, I get it, but I think Thriller should have been number one. Abbey Road, the Beatles. You know what? I'll admit too, I've never heard a full Beatles album, and maybe that's on me. That's my bad. Shout out, rest in peace to Mac Miller, my brother. Mac was the one, and you always hear the Beatles were great, but Mac was the one who sit down. Like I told Mac that, and he was like, "You've never listened to a full Beatles album," and like got really upset. I remember that conversation with my brother. It was right around the time he put out Macadelic, and he had sent me the mixtape early to listen to, and then we were talking about the Beatles and how the Beatles inspired him, and I had admitted that to him, and he was like appalled. So I got to get my life right, and I gotta get get to it and actually listen to the Beatles as they were meant to be listened to. So maybe I'll start with Abbey Road. Rest in peace to my brother Mac Miller. But I've never heard a Beatles album in its entirety. But obviously the Beatles are great. We're told the Beatles are great. I believe the Beatles are great. You can see the influence from the Beatles. You can see how the Beatles were influenced by groups that came before them, and particularly black groups, right? But you could also see how the Beatles influenced generations and generations after them. Prince Purple Rain, one of my favorite albums of all time, at number 4. I Get It. Frank Ocean, Blonde at number 5. I know people live and like love Blonde. I'm not. That's not even my favorite Frank Ocean album. Like Nostalgia Ultra for me, and maybe it's just because of time, but Orange, um, yeah, but Blonde at number 5 seems like a lot. I'm not gonna lie. There's no disrespect to Frank Ocean. Like also on this list, we're talking about all times greats. So everything in here we're talking about is great. Nothing is dirt. But Blonde at number 5 seems like a lot. Songs in the Key of Life, Stevie Wonder, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful album. Yes. Good Kid, Mad City at number 7. Kendrick Lamar, I love this album, modern day classic. I have issues with this though at number 7. I think Good Kid is one of those ones. It is a certified hip hop classic. Um, and but at number 7, and to be the highest ranking hip hop album on this list, then does this in turn, and this is not 1 plus 1 makes 2. This might be like 1 plus 1 makes 3. Like I'm deducing from here, but I don't know if Apple meant this. But in this in turn, does this mean that Good Kid, Mad City is the best hip hop album of all time? Like, is that what Apple is meaning to say? I don't know. And for that, I can't agree. Like, there's a lot of I think it's great. I think that something great that this list does is it opens room for more recent albums. The fact that you could speak about a Frank Ocean and a Kendrick Lamar and the Beatles and Michael Jackson in the same breath as a Lauryn Hill, like it allows more recent classics to come in and be a part of the conversation, and I think that's great. But the Good Kid, Mad City is a classic. It is in the classic category. There are a lot of other hip hop classics I will put ahead of that. Back to Black by Amy, Nevermind by Nirvana. I never listened to Nevermind also, but I know all the singles. Like I love all the Nirvana singles, and I know that Nirvana is a great group. Lithium is one of my favorite. Like, Lithium is an amazing song. Everybody says Teen Spirit. I don't even know that Lithium was on Nevermind, so that shows how my ignorance goes. But Nirvana had a song called Lithium that I love. Lemonade by Beyonce, Rumors by Fleetwood Mac, amazing album. OK Computer, then The Blueprint by Jay-Z at number 13. Is that the second best hip hop album of all time? Like is that what they're trying to tell us? I don't know. The Chronic at number 19. What's Going On by Marvin Gaye, of course. Taylor Swift is on here. Taylor Swift, Joni Mitchell at 16 and Taylor Swift at number 18. Again, it goes back to that thing of new artists, being really revered in the same breath as some of the classic artists. And I think that's a good conversation. I just want to kind of go through this list a little bit. And Illmatic is at number 39. I think Nas's Illmatic needs to be higher. And before it, just a couple of albums before it, Wu-Tang, Enter the 36 Chambers at number 37. Notorious B.I.G.'s Life After I'm Ready to Die at number 32. It Takes the Nation of Millions by Public Enemy at 34. Low End Theory at number 29. I think Illmatic needs to be higher than all of those, like in my opinion. Like, and especially, and look, these are my prime years. Illmatic came out in 94, same year as Ready to Die. Wu-Tang came out in 93. These are all around the same time. Low End Theory came out in 92, I believe. Scenario 92. It might have came out in 91. 91, 92 was Low End Theory. I think Illmatic is a more complete classic body of work. And again, we're talking about classics, and that's not saying, hey, Illmatic needs to be above Enter the Woo, and Enter the Woo is dirt. That's not what we're saying. I just think it needs to be ranked higher, in my opinion. Ready to Die at 32 is interesting too, because and y'all could debate with me in the comments, all you Biggie fans. But I think Life After Death is a better album than Ready to Die. And I love Big, dog. I'm from Brooklyn. Like you know what it is. I think Life After Death was so polished. It's really crazy that Big died right after he finished that album. Like, first of all, it's really crazy. I think the last verse that Big, I think it's documented. I believe it's documented. The last verse that Big died before he passed away was Victory on Diddy, the No Way Out album. And I think that might have been Biggie's best rhymes of all time. Not my favorite, but technically, like the rhymes on Victory. So it's like dude really died at 24 years old, like rapping, like just getting better as a rapper, like really at his peak. I think Life After Death is just a better album. Ready to Die, I was actually quite, Life After Death is my favorite hip hop album of all time, and this is the best. This is not what our favorites are, but Life After Death is my favorite hip hop album of all time. And I was disappointed that not only was Ready to Die ranked higher, Life After Death isn't on the list at all, which was kind of crazy to me. Low End Theory at 29, amazing album too, but also in a similar fashion, A Tribe Called Quest Midnight Marauders to me is actually the better album sonically. They're both dope. It's almost like a 1A and 1B. Like, those are incredible albums. I think Low End Theory changed a lot of things, but I think the things that A Tribe Called Quest, that Tribe did on Low End Theory, I think they perfected on Midnight Marauders. I think a lot of just the places they were taking music, they just perfected it on Midnight Marauders. I would have liked to see both on the list, but if we can only do one, I'm just like, damn, why is it Midnight Marauders on here? Similarly, SZA, SOS is at number 72. I think Control should be on the SOS. I love SOS as an album. But I think Control, I like Control better. I think Control should be on the album. I'm sorry, I think Control should be on the list. Man, we could be here all night. I'm just again going through this to see what we're missing. Let me see. Drake, Take Care at 47. Not mad at that. I know people not fucking with Drake right now. There's a lot of Drake revisionist history going on since that battle. But I think Drake deserves a spot on this list. Outkast, Aquemini at 41. I think that's excellent. Maybe could have been higher for me, but I think Outkast represented on this list. Janet Jackson, Control at 42. Tupac, All Eyes on Me at 62. It just felt like a lot of Straight Outta Compton, NWA. You see, I got my Ice Cube shirt on today at number 70. It just seems like there's a couple of artists who have two or multiple entries on here, but it's really just kind of one and done for a lot of artists. I believe Beyonce has 2 albums on here. Well deserved. Kanye West, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy at 26. See, that's the thing where I could agree with that. That might be a little high for my taste, but and that's the only Kanye album on here. But that's not my favorite Kanye album. Graduation is my favorite Kanye album, but that's when I could take my own personal thing out of it, right? I could say, okay, it's not about what my personal thing is. I believe that for most people, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy is like their favorite Kanye album. You know what I'm saying? Like I get that. Kid A by Radiohead. Radiohead has 2. They have OK Computer at 12, and they have Kid A at 33. I'm just trying to glance over this thing and not bore y'all. Beyonce at number 36 and Lemonade at number 10. So there are artists on here with multiple entries, which just to me begs why. Like I need to know why Michael Jackson, like Off the Wall and Bad aren't on here. Like, that's insane to me. That's probably the most, if anything, I would say that's the most egregious thing. Look, And I think Apple. So everybody's going crazy. Everybody's losing their minds. I've made lists before. It's meant to spark conversation. I don't think in any way this is an impossible task. I know a lot of people are calling these guys names and these women names and how they don't know anything, but it sparked a spirited conversation about the music we love, and I think that's what lists are meant to do. Again, I think they try to get it right. I hope they weren't trolling, because you don't even need to troll when it comes to making a list. You could just try to make the best list that you can, and people will inherently disagree. I take it from me. I'm a guy who have made plenty lists, but Ebro is my guy. Shout out to Ebro. Shout out to Carly Hustle. Shout out to Low Key. Shout out to Nadeska. Shout out to Zane Lowe. That's my guy. Shout out to Eddie. Like, I see the whole Apple. Shout out to S Wit. I see the whole Apple staff like really like defending this like tooth and nail, and I feel y'all. I'm cool to have this conversation with y'all. Y'all should have called me. I wish I would have got a vote, but I got a bone to pick with this list, man. Thriller should have been number one. I get it. I get it. Thriller has been number one for a long time, and we want some new number ones. We want some new blood on that list. Miseducation is a fine choice, but it's hard to top that Thriller, man. And the fact that MJ doesn't have Off the Wall or Bad is crazy. Good Kid, Mad City has the highest ranking hip hop album on here. That's a point. Before I get out of here, because I'm not going to belabor it, that's a point. I think while a lot of classics and a lot of other genres are on this list, I think hip hop, it feels like there's a lot of recency bias with hip hop. I think there was an effort to make sure that a lot of new hip hop artists got in on that conversation, because we've also been talking about the same classic hip hop albums for years, right? It Takes a Nation of Millions, Straight Outta Compton, Illmatic. But man, I don't think I seen a Paid in Full on here. I could be wrong. I don't, Eminem's Marshall Mathers LP, Super Duper Fly by Missy Elliott is at 75. Bad Bunny, Un Verano is at number 76. There's a lot of recents on here. My favorite R&B album of all time is Mary J. Blige, My Life. That's at number 86. Usher's Confessions is at number 95. I think Flower Boy by Tyler, the Creator, is at number 92. That's not even the best Tyler album to me. Wow. Crazy. But let me know what y'all think. We're going to talk about it in the comments, man. I could be up here all day, but hey, man, we need more Michael Jackson on this list. If that was my one takeaway, we need more Michael Jackson on this list. Where's the Michael Jackson on it? You could make the argument that Michael Jackson could have been number 1, 2, and 3 with Thriller, Off the Wall, Bad. So, I don't know, man. But let me know in the comments, man. We're going to be right here with y'all. I'm going to be there talking with y'all. We're going to debate this thing and have some fun with it, all right? Till the next time. Peace.